I bragged about sleeping with younger and richer version of him to my friends. He overheard everything. Hello, everyone. My name is, well, a secret. I will rather not say. I'm afraid that someone might know me here, and I'll rather remain anonymous, even though nothing about my life right now is. I messed up. I messed up real bad, and I cannot move past it. I can't seem to bring myself to forgive me. I thought I had no choice but to do what I did. It was a matter of survival to me. I didn't think the repercussions would be this grave. It's so hard trying to keep my head above water when everything else seems to be pushing me under. I've become abandoned by everyone. My family, my friends, the people who respected me before, my kids, and most painfully, my husband. It's all really my fault. I didn't know that he was there listening in on me bragging and insulting him. I kept going on and on about it. I bragged about sleeping with a younger and richer version of him to my friends. I didn't even know he was home that night. The kids were also at a friend's place for a sleepover, and the house was supposed to be empty. He was supposed to be on a trip, but somehow he was there in the room while I laughed and bragged about just how rich the guy I met is and how he was willing to spend on me. I married Dee 11 years ago, almost immediately after I met him. I was madly in love with him. And well, his money too. Dee came from a wealthy family, and when we met and started dating, his parents wouldn't approve of me, so I purposely got pregnant even though I was barely out of university then. I didn't want to miss my chances of being with him, so I stopped using the pills, and I lied to him that I was safe, so he didn't have to use protection either. Dee didn't think too much of it, though. He accepted the baby, and within 2 months of us dating, we were legally married. Life was fun and beautiful. I didn't have to do too much. We had 2 nannies helping with our child, and then our second child after I gave birth to her 2 years later. I still had time to go out with my friends, shop till I was ready to drop and look like a trophy wife when I had to. Dee didn't mind anything. He gave me any amount I asked for without thinking twice, and while he traveled and worked, I did what I loved doing. I really did live for the glam, and it was after 8 years passed that everything just changed. Business took a dip. Some major investors pulled out of the business, and every money that we had had to go into helping the business. We still were okay. We just had to let go of one of the nannies, and the money I spent daily took a huge cut. I wasn't happy. I didn't like not having money. I stopped going out with my friends lying every time they invited me out. Not because I didn't want to go, but because I didn't have the money to spend as much as I usually would do. I hated it. I hated it so much. Because staying at home meant inevitably paying attention to the kids. I love my kids, I swear I do. But they were only cute for about 30 minutes before they got loud and messy, and I just honestly couldn't deal with it. I thought things would get better. It was only for a while. At least that was what Dee told me, and I trusted him. He was smart and good at his job. I was sure he would get the business back on its feet in months' time. He did. He did get it back. And everything was back to normal again. Well, to him and not me, though. It seems life somehow taught him some lessons on saving and branching into other businesses after that one dip, because instead of allowing me to spend as much as I did before, Dee still wouldn't give me that much, even though I knew the business was okay then. He started to convince me to get a job, or better still, bring a business plan, and he promised to fund it. It sounds like something amazing, right? But to me, who never planned to work for the rest of her life and just enjoyed life, it sounded horrible. I didn't want to handle any business. I didn't even know how to. But Dee was so serious about it, I had no choice but to give him a business proposal which he furbished and did everything on. I was only there as the CEO of an already existing business. It was a shopping mall, but within a year, the business closed down. I wasn't only taking just the profits for personal interest, but also digging into the capital. And I was also selecting the best and most expensive dresses for myself instead of selling them. Believe me, at that time, all I thought of was myself. I felt like I deserved everything that I did for myself, including cheating. I felt like I had to. Dee gave me the money to start up another business, but I still ended up ruining things, and Dee just stopped discussing business with me altogether. He accepted. The fact that I was useless at it and didn't bring it up anymore. But it didn't mean he funded my usual lifestyle anymore. He still gave me money, but not even up to half of what he did before. To me, it felt like he was being wicked and selfish with the money he clearly had. So I told my friends, the same friends that had advised me back then to do whatever I could to ensure I got married to Dee. They, of course, did exactly as I would have expected them to. They were angry on my behalf and said all sorts of things about Dee, not good things. I was happy they felt like that too. I felt relieved even. It felt like I wasn't the only one who felt that he was just being wicked to me. My friends then suggested that I see another man on the side. I was obviously a beautiful woman according to them. I could easily catch the eye of a richer man who would be willing to spend on me like Dee wasn't. They also concluded that Dee was probably spending the money on another woman, so I probably had the right to do the same. I knew otherwise. Dee would never cheat on me. He was as open as a book. He was always either at work or with the kids. He had no life outside his work and our family. I knew that. I didn't doubt it. But I just chose to convince myself otherwise. Just to give myself that excuse as reason valid enough to cheat on him. I didn't just cheat once on Dee, I cheated twice on him with 2 different men. The first had been one introduced to me by my friends, although the relationship didn't last long. He was older, much older than me, almost as old as my father. He was a widower with kids that were perhaps 2 or a year younger than me. He was some famous politician who had no issues with playing dirty, both sexually and also politically. I felt disgusted sleeping with him, but I couldn't stop because of the money I got from him. He was rich and gave me money any time we met. It was easy to deceive Dee. He wasn't always at home, and the kids weren't either. So I got the chance to go out as much as I wanted. I was back to shopping the way I already had before, and it was nice. I loved the trips the girls and I went on. The ones I told Dee were always sponsored by the girls. I continued sleeping with the politician for about 2 months before the whole thing crashed. He got exposed for embezzlement and took a huge hit, but luckily for me, our affair didn't get exposed as one of his secrets was discovered. I was so happy, and then I wasn't. It meant I didn't have access to the life I was able to access again in the 2 months of being with him. I didn't want to go back to, not being able to buy what my covetous eyes cited. I became rather desperate, and in my desperate attempts to find a solution to my money problems, I started going out to clubs, so I could find myself a rich man who was willing to part with money. My friends had told me that different men came to the club, and it was there I could get a man who was desperate for sex and willing to exchange. More money than was necessary for it. It was apparently why clubs made so much money for providing them that. I did get my rich man from that club truly, and it was only after a week of hanging around in the club. I didn't pay any attention to him at first. He was obviously younger, and when he approached me hoping to buy my friends and I a drink, I was quick to dismiss him. One of my friends was interested in him and kept fawning over him, but he was clearly interested in me and kept asking questions about me from my friends, even though I was seated there too. The next day, a strange number texted me, and it was him. I kept ignoring him until I found out just how rich he was. He obviously didn't work. He relied on his parents' wealth and played hard. He's nothing like Dee, and for a while I really thought that that was good, because he meant he didn't think of saving up or starting up any business for me. He just wanted to party, drink, and have fun. We started going out after I found out about his money and his readiness to spend it. Soon after meeting him, I was paying for the girls' trip, and I went on instead of all 3 of us contributing to it. I was buying a bunch of clothes that I didn't even need, but just because I wanted them. I liked being with him. I really did like it, and I felt like I was on top of the world. My friends edged me on. They liked the fact that I got to sort out their bills, of course. Even though they were obviously jealous and wanted to be in my position, they were happy for me. Well, at that time I thought they were. Everything just seemed to be going on well. Too well, and I thought I was good at hiding what was going on until it just became shamelessly obvious that I wasn't. Dee didn't complain when I kept on spending and spending on frivolous things. Not after the one time he asked me about it, and I made a huge deal out of it. He had asked me where I was getting the money I was spending so much, and I pretended to be offended. I felt insulted and angry. My thoughts then were that he couldn't give me money, and I found a way to get that money, and he still questions it too. So I shouted at him and even refused to share a bed with him. That night, and I had slept in the guest room instead. I felt like he had no right to ask me, because I wasn't even being selfish with the money I got from having an affair. I bought some toys for the kids and some dresses for my little girl, even though the nanny had tagged them inappropriate for a girl her age. I felt like I was really doing my best for the family. It was my excuse for having an affair, and I just stuck with it so I didn't feel guilty. But that didn't last long. The feeling of guilt eventually came, and it has just been awful, especially because now there's nothing I can do to regain the trust and the love between Dee and I. Because ever since Dee found out, I've become like a speaking wall to him. Thinking about that awful night and the things I said is always so terrible to me, and it just replays each day in my head like it happened yesterday, even though it happened 2 weeks ago. Dee wasn't supposed to be home that night. He told me he was going on a trip, and it was supposed to be for 2 days. He had. Even apologized for his absence. The next day was supposed to be our wedding anniversary. I was upset, but I didn't mind that he wasn't going to be around. The guy I was sleeping around with had called earlier that day and wanted me to spend the night the next day. Even though he knew I was married, he kept insisting, and the money he sent me the next minute after he convinced me was weighing on my mind. I didn't have an excuse ready for Dee, so it worked out well in my favor when he said he had to go out of town. Instead of spending the night as the guy had managed to convince me to, I ended up spending the whole 2 days that Dee was gone with him. I was free, right? I didn't have to worry about the kids or Dee. The kids had their nanny and Dee wasn't in town. I got home early the 3rd day, so Dee wouldn't know I was gone, but when Dee called that day to tell me that he had another important work that he had to stay back for, I decided to go out with my friends. We had fun as usual, going to all our favorite places and even having a spa date with them. I didn't want to go home alone, especially after the nanny had called to inform me that the kids were having a sleepover at a friend's place, and they wanted to retire early for the night too. I couldn't go meet the guy I was having an affair with because he too had gone out of town after I left his place. To be honest, I didn't want to be left alone with my thoughts because maybe they reminded me of the real reason why I was doing what I was doing, and I really didn't want any truthful reminder at that point. So I invited the girls over to my place with a tempting offer of an expensive wine, and they agreed. I didn't even check to see that Dee's car was outside in the garage. I didn't notice. I was busy laughing and gossiping with my friends. When we entered the house, I got the wine and some snacks, and we started talking. My friends kept complaining about their relationship. None of them were married. One of them had. A boyfriend that she has dated now for so many years, and he still wouldn't pop the question. The other one was in and out relationships faster than was required. She had just ended a relationship that same day because the guy had apparently told her he was married with kids and wanted just sex with her. They were complaining, and when I tried to chip in my bit, they both just dismissed me, saying they envied me because I was lucky to have a family and still have a relationship that was good. I should have kept quiet. I shouldn't have laughed and felt the need to make them feel further jealousy by saying the things I said. I told them how I spent the last 2 days in one of the most luxurious hotels I've ever known. I told them how glamorous everything had been. I told them that, even though I was married, that Dee couldn't compare to what I was getting from the affair. I even ended up saying that the guy was a younger and richer version of Dee, and I was enjoying myself so much. What I didn't know was that Dee was in the house. He was right there by the stairs listening to everything I was saying. He heard when I called him a saving monkey and called him boring in bed. He heard every part of me when I said that guy lasted longer than him in bed. He heard everything. And I didn't know that until he cleared his throat and came down to the bottom of the stairs. I was so shocked to see him there. I prayed desperately that he didn't hear any of the things I said, and I tried to behave normally. Tried to go to him and hug him while saying just how pleasantly surprised I was to see him. At home. But the way Dee moved back as if he couldn't bear my hands on his skin. The way his eyes, red with anger, glared at me. I remember everything, and I didn't even think it possible to hurt even more each time I remember. I remember how he walked across the living room to the door, opened it widely, and motioned for my friends to leave. They said nothing and quickly ran out without even sparing me a single glance. I thought of ways to apologize to Dee. I didn't know what to do, and I just kept panicking. I thought after he closed the door, I could go to him and on my knees cry and beg for forgiveness. Tell him I didn't mean any of the things he heard. Beg him to forgive me and give me a second chance. But Dee left the door open and kept looking at me. It didn't matter to him that it was dark outside and that I had nowhere else to go. I tried begging. I cried, begging him to hear me out, but Dee wanted to hear nothing from me. He didn't even say anything to me either, and when I wouldn't go, he angrily took the glass cup I was drinking from moments ago and threw it across the room, smashing it into many pieces. The message was clear. I either walked out peacefully or I had the same fate as the broken glass. I chose the latter and spent the night out in the cold in the garage, hoping that by morning, Dee would be level-headed. I thought if he saw me out in the cold, he would pity me, allow me in, and perhaps hear me out. I had. Practiced my apology all night. I was so scared of what it meant if Dee didn't accept my apology. I didn't know what else to do, so I sat there and waited for him to leave for work. But when the time came, Dee did leave for work, but didn't even spare me a single glance. He locked the door and left, ignoring me like I didn't even exist. I called both my friends, asking if either of them could pick me up so I could at least get a change of clothes and come back to my begging, but none of them was willing. They gave excuses, and one of them had even promised to after a lot of begging. But after 1 hour with her not showing up, I called her back and realized shockingly that she had blocked me. I felt betrayed, but it still didn't matter to me as much as Dee's hatred did. I kept calling and texting him, apologizing and hoping. But by afternoon, I was forcefully removed from the house by the same security guard that was responsible for the neighborhood protection and one that had known me for many years, because his boss, as he would always call Dee, apparently gave that instruction. I called the guy I was having an affair with and told him everything I was hoping for. To be honest, I don't know what I was really hoping for, but what I got was certainly not what I was expecting. He told me that it was my own issue and I should deal with it, and then he ended the call. I was on my own. The people I thought I could rely on were apparently what they had pretended to be all these while. I didn't know what to do. I kept crying. And eventually, when I managed to get a hotel room and change of clothes, I went back to the house knowing the kids would be back, and they would at least want to see me. The kids weren't home when I got there, though. The house was still locked. It was obvious that no one was home, not even their nanny, who was usually at home around that time after picking the kids up from school. I tried her number to find out where she was with the kids, but I was blocked. She had blocked me too. By then, my parents had found out what I did, and my mom was just so livid and kept screaming at me, threatening not to show up in front of her without even hearing anything that I had to say. Of course, they would believe Dee. He had been their son-in-law for years and had always been the one visiting mostly with the kids and sending them money every time since we got married. I would believe him too if it was the other way around. I was alone in my mess, and believe me, I tried really hard to fix it, but it just grew worse than it already was. The more I tried, the more people found out the truth, and the more people that hated me grew. I haven't seen my kids since then, and it just feels really terrible, especially because I was never really a mother to them. Dee didn't come home until after a week. I knew because I kept going back to the house hoping to get to see him and talk to him because he was ignoring my messages and countless calls. When he finally showed up at the house, I tried talking to him, but he just slammed the door in my face without giving me a chance to talk. 2 days ago, divorce papers signed by Dee were sent to me by his lawyers. They wanted me to also sign over the custody of our kids, and apparently there was evidence of me cheating, even though I don't even know how they obtained it or what that evidence was, and no matter how hard I fought, I couldn't win. But what they don't know is I've lost all the fights within myself. The will to live on because of how empty I feel on my inside, just because I've lost the best thing that money can never buy. I realize how selfish and covetous I had been, how stupidly I thought I could get away with everything, and now how everything has not only ended up exploding in my face, but also bringing me to nothingness. I wish I had realized early enough just how much greed was the enemy within myself that I had to battle with. Just knowing that Dee and the kids will never see me as they once did is torture. So much torture than I can bear. My life is just completely and totally over, and it's all my fault.